So let's try our hands on this question that I have on the screen. The question says if x is greater than 1, then find the square root of 1 minus the square root of x squared minus 1 multiplying I. What you have here is a complex number, okay? And then you've been told that what if x is greater than 1, then let's find the square root of what this complex number. So let's look at how you are going to do it. So let's say I have a complex number z, which is equal to what a plus ib. Then I can write this complex number in polar form as what z equals r multiplying cosine of theta plus I sine of what theta. Then in that case, the Morpheus theorem says that what z raised to the power n, okay, will be equal to what r to the power n multiplying the bracket of what cosine n theta plus what I sine n theta. So the Morpheus theorem says that what if you have this complex number here, okay, and then raise it to a certain power n, then you can write it in this form that I have here. So I'm going to apply this to find what the square root of what this complex number that we have here. So let's look at how you are going to do it. Okay, so I have z to be equal to 1 minus I, okay, multiplying x squared minus 1. Okay, so in this case, I have my a to be equal to 1, and then I have my b to be equal to minus square root of x squared minus what 1. So that's my a, and then that's my b. Okay, so from here you see that what we need r, okay, which is what the argument of what the complex number. Okay, so r will be equal to what the modulus of what the complex number, and that's calculated as what the square root of what a squared plus what b squared. So let's look at how you're going to do this. So this will be equal to what square root of 1 squared plus minus square root of what x squared minus 1 all squared. This is what you have now. So now let's focus on what you have in this bracket. So I have what minus square root of x squared minus 1, okay, multiplying what itself. So I have what minus x squared minus 1. Now multiply this minus sign will cancel out this minus sign, then this square root also cancel out what this square root. So then you have what x squared minus 1. Okay, so let's jot that down. So you have what minus what the square root of x squared minus 1, okay, minus square root of what x squared minus 1 to the power 2 to be equal to what x squared minus 1. So let's jot that down. So let's continue. So now I have this to be equal to what the square root of 1, because what 1 squared is what 1. So I have square root of what 1 plus x squared minus what 1, because what you have in the bracket here is what is equal to what I have here. So this will be equal to the square root of what 1 minus 1, that was 0. So that was square root of what x squared, and that will be equal to what x, because of this square root cancel out of the square root. So now know that what r equals what x. So let's write this down. So I have what r to be equal to what x. Okay, so from here I'm going to rewrite the complex number in a way that we can what identify what n. Okay, so let's look at that. So you start from here, we said what z equals what 1 minus what I multiplying what the square root of what x squared minus what 1. Okay, and then you have to take what the square root of what z. So that would be like z to the power half equals what r to the power half. Okay, multiplying cosine of half theta. So that was theta divided by 2 plus I sine of half theta, which was theta divided by what? 2. Okay, this is what you have now from this formula here. Okay, so from here you see that what n equals what? Half. Okay, so let's write that down. So you have what? Our n to be equal to what? Half. Okay, let's continue. Okay, we are going to need this formula. Okay, so now let's look at what we are going to do. So what I'll do here next is that I'm going to represent this complex number here on the Gantt diagram. Okay, so let's look at how I'm going to do it. So since we have A to be a positive value and then B to be a negative value, we're going to have this complex number in the fourth quadrant. So let's look at this. When I draw this complex number on the Gantt diagram, this is the real axis and then this is the imaginary axis. Okay, so I have what 1 here and then I have what the other value here. This is the argument. So this will be minus square root of what? X squared minus what? 1. Okay, so now let's not forget that this side here is x because what that's the what? The modulus. Okay, so what I'll do now is that I'm going to take the cosine and sine of what? The angle theta. So let's look at that. Cosine of theta will be equal to what? Adjacent over what? Hypotenuse, and that was 1 over what? X. And then sine of theta will be equal to what? Opposite over what? Hypotenuse. So that was minus square root of what? X squared minus 1 divided by what? X. Okay, so this is what we have now. Okay, so let's look at what we are going to do now. So from here, I'm going to write down some trig identities. Okay, I'm going to write down some trig identities. Okay, let's look at that. So from trigonometry, okay, cosine of theta on 2 will be equal to the square root of 1 plus cosine theta divided by 2. Okay, and then the sine of theta on 2 is equal to minus square root of 1 minus cosine on theta divided by what? 2. These are what? Trig identities for cosine theta on 2 and then sine theta on 2. Okay, so we are going to do some substitution here. So from what you have here, we know that what? Cosine theta equals what? 1 over x. Okay, cosine theta equals what? 1 over x. So I'm going to substitute 1 over x in place of what? Cosine theta here. So in that case, I have what? Cosine theta on 2 to be equal to the square root of 1 plus 1 over x divided by what? 2. And then I have what? Sine theta on 2 to be equal to what? Minus square root of what? 1 minus 1 over x divided by what? 2. Because what? We've substituted what? This value of what? Cosine theta into this equation that we have here and then this equation. So that's how come what we have what I have here. Okay, so now what you are going to do is that you are going to simplify the values you have what in the square root sign. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so we are taking 1 plus 1 over x. Okay, so let's see the value of that. So what I'll do here is that I'm going to multiply what the denominator, which is what this 1 times what this x, and then that'll give me what x. Then we do cross multiplication. I'll multiply this x here by what this 1 here, and that'll give me x. And I'll multiply this 1 by this 1 here. That was plus 1. And then you know that what all this is being divided by what 2. So divided by what 2. So I have to reciprocate these 2. So that will be times 1 over what 2. So this will give us what x plus 1 divided by what 2x, right? So you can come and substitute this here. So this will be equal to what? The square root of x plus 1 divided by what 2x. Okay, let's do same for the sine theta on 2 also. Okay, so for the sine theta on 2, dealing with what you have in this square root sign here, I'll have 1 minus 1 over x. Okay, let's simplify this first. So I'll multiply the denominators, which will be this x multiplying what this 1, and that'll give me what x. And then we do cross multiplication, x multiplying what 1, that'll give us x minus what 1 times 1, which is what 1. So we have what this will be divided by 2, so that was x minus 1 divided by x, dividing what 2, so that was times what half. So that gives us what x minus 1 divided by what 2x. So let's substitute this here. So that was square root of x minus 1 divided by what 2x, and then this negative. Okay, let's not forget that. Okay, so now all we have to do is substitution. So let's look at that. So from what we have here, okay, we have what cosine theta on 2 and then sine theta on 2 here. So I'm just going to substitute this value and then this value here what, into this formula that we have up here. So let's look at that. So we have what z to the power half, okay, to be equal to what r to the power half, and r is what x. So x to the power half will be this much, what the square root of what x. So this will multiply what cosine theta on 2, and that's what the same as the square root of what x plus 1 divided by what 2x, okay, plus I sine of what theta on 2, and that's what minus square root of what x minus 1 divided by what 2x. So this will become minus I square root of what x minus 1 divided by what 2x. This is what we have now. Okay, so let's look at what happens. So I can write this as, let me free up some space first. Okay, so I'm going to write what we have in the bracket here in a different way. So let's look at that. So I have z to the power half to be equal to square root of what x, okay, multiplying square root of what x plus 1 divided by what square root of 2x, okay, minus I multiplying square root of what x minus 1 divided by what square root of what 2x. Okay, this is what you have now. Let's further rewrite this in another way. So this will give us what z to the power half to be equal to what square root of what x, okay, multiplying square root of what x plus 1 divided by root of 2 times what root of what x, right? Because what root of 2 times root of x will give us what root of what 2x, minus I multiply with the square root of what x minus 1 divided by what root of 2 times what root of what x. So this is what you have now. And know that what this root of x is here will be what multiplied by what the terms in the what in the bracket. So when I multiply this root of x by what square root of what x plus 1 divided by what root of 2 times what root of x, this x here will cancel out what this x, right? And then when I multiply When I multiply this by what I have here also, the square root of x will cancel out what? The square root of x. So at the end, we will have z to the power half to be equal to what? Plus or minus square root of what? X plus 1. Okay, divided by what? With 2, right? Minus I multiplying x minus 1 divided by what? With 2. Bracket close. This equals what? This square root of x here will cancel out of the square root of x we have in what? These two things. So then we have what? Z to the power half to be equal to what? Plus or minus square root of what? X plus 1 divided by what? With 2 minus what? I multiply what? Square root of what? X minus 1 divided by what? Square root of what? 2. So when you square this complex number that we have here, this is the answer that you will get.